Welcome, everyone. I'm Braulio Rosa, Executive Director of the Broward County Bar Association. The Broward County Bar Association, in conjunction with the 17th Judicial Circuit, is celebrating Women's History Month. And today it is my great honor and privilege to be interviewing the one and only Judge Ilona Holmes. Judge Holmes,
hey,
welcome.
Braulio, how you doing?
I'm good.
Excellent.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I know you're super busy still, even though you've retired, but not really retired.
You got it.
We're talking about that. So let's jump right into it. Can you tell us a little bit about where you were born, raised, what that was like, and where your folks from?
You know, I always like to do this, even though I changed the lyrics, in North Philadelphia, born and raised, in the playground. Okay. I'm not the Fresh Prince, but I'm the Fresh Princess. So, I was born and raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We being my mother, my sister and brother and I, we moved to Deerfield Beach in 1974. So I finished high school at Deerfield Beach High. I'm a buck. So I can really consider myself a Floridian now. But I go back and forth. Matter of fact, in August of this year, I'll be going back to Philadelphia to see some of my cousins and relatives. And I'm going to make sure I keep up with folks, after this, what we've been through for the past 2 years.
What was that change like? I know I was born and raised in a big city, Los Angeles, and then moved here to South Florida, which now we think of as big city, but here you are in Broward. Broward in the 1980s was very different from Los Angeles. So what was that transition for you from Philadelphia to Deerfield like?
Now, that was a major transition. Matter of fact, my sister, who was 2 years older than I am, we were actually plotting a way to get back to Philadelphia. Because when we got here to Deerfield, they really embraced that it takes a village to raise a child. We were waiting to get paperwork from Philadelphia. Well, I was, because my sister had already graduated. And so I couldn't go to school until the paperwork came. And so I'm just sitting outside, and this woman stops her car, gets out, and runs up to me and starts hitting me. "You're truant. You need to be in school. Where are your people?" And I was like, "Wait a minute. Who are you?" So they embraced that in Deerfield, and I was never ever so happy to get to school because I got tired of being assaulted by people who were wondering, why aren't you in school? So it was this is slower living, and I don't mean that disparagingly.
Right.
Everything's hustle bustle in Philadelphia. You're getting on a bus, you're walking fast. It's like New York. So coming here where people sort of take their time doing things. And I have learned over the years that I'm developing my patience. So I still move fast. I still talk a little fast because the Philadelphia is still in me, I guess. But it was a drastic shock to my sister and I.
Well, at that time, there was no when did the Heat come here? I don't think there was basketball or baseball. There was only football here at the time.
You had the Dolphins, and I was an Eagles fan at the time.
You had the Eagles, Dr. J, Julius Erving, and the Philadelphia 76ers.
Absolutely.
The Philadelphia Phillies. So, it was...
I like the Knicks, too. I was Clyde, Frazier, not Clyde.
Drexler.
No, he was Houston.
Houston, right.
Frazier, he used to dress up real good. You had Earl the Pearl, and then you had Frazier. Walt Frazier, that's him. I used to be in love with him. I wanted to elope with him.
Okay, so we're talking a little bit. To be honest, I don't follow basketball anymore, really. But at that time in the 80s, being a kid, growing up in L.A., we had the Lakers. We had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, and all of those folks. So that great rivalry with Boston really helped resuscitate basketball, if you remember, during the time.
Absolutely.
And so were you a Celtic fan or a Lakers fan? If you say Celtics, you're out of here. No.
Well, I didn't really like Larry Bird, but I liked Magic Johnson. And so I followed him through his Michigan
Right.
days, and so I used to play basketball, so that's why I'm kind of up on this. But I'd have to say Lakers. But I'm a Heat fan now.
Of course.
and we're like number 2 in the East. We're handling things.
How did you, and I don't know a lot about it, but there was a time where you had the three amigos or whatever it's called, the 3 best players, and
The
how
big
did
three.
you, right? How did you? I mean, those were great times for Miami in basketball.
Yeah.
How did you deal with the breakup of that team?
To be honest with you, I didn't like what's his name, number 23 now, number 8. I didn't like LeBron.
Right.
I'm taking my talents and to South Beach. He took too long to do that, and then he left and he went back to Cleveland. But I understood why he did that.
Right.
Because he wanted, in his heyday, to make sure that they had a championship also.
Right.
Then he goes to L.A. And word is, when his son starts playing, if his son gets a contract, that's where he's going. So he
Wow.
wants to play with his son. So
Okay. All right.
it's good.
So basketball.
Yeah,
One
I like
last
football and basketball.
Okay,
Those
so
are my
one,
sports.
one last basketball question since we're on it now.
Okay.
And this is always I think, a great question. LeBron James or MJ? Who's the GOAT?
I'll put it this way. Sometimes I feel like Solomon.
You can't split the baby.
Yeah,
You
I'm
can't-
gonna split this baby. They were the goats of their eras and their times. Things were different when Michael Jordan played. The team makeups were different. LeBron, I watched him score 56 points against the Warriors the other night. So he is the greatest in this time era. If you ask me about MJ and Larry, Larry and Magic Johnson, they played. They were contemporaries,
Right.
so therefore you can really make that comparison. And no offense to Magic, but Larry was phenomenal as a player. I didn't like him, but I liked his game.
Right.
And he played hurt, and so I would give the nod to Larry Bird as the greatest. But that was a different era.
Versus
different time.
Michael Jordan and LeBron, you're gonna
You got it.
you're gonna be like Solomon
Yeah,
and
I
split
gotta be
the
like
baby.
Solomon. They're both great in their time.
Well done. You look like a good priest. So, moving on. Tell me about your parents. Did they encourage you? We know, and we'll get into it, that you lawyered, and then you were an icon on the bench here. So, was it your parents who really motivated you to follow that path?
It was my dad. My dad died when I was 15, but I can remember one of his favorite shows was the Perry Mason show. And I would sit on his lap. I was about 7, 8. And I looked up at him. I remember the conversation. I said, Daddy, I can do that, what Perry Mason was doing. Because Perry would say, in just a minute, the real murderer is going to come through this door. And everybody would just turn and look at the door.
That slow turn.
Okay. Well, I've heard lawyers use, and I use, there was no need for me to use it, but I allowed them to do it. Because if you turned and look at that door, that's reasonable doubt. I didn't know the terminology at the time, but I told my dad, I said, I can do that. And my dad looked at me and he says, then you go and do that. So I was a daddy's girl, even though I have an older sister and a younger brother and an older brother also. I was a daddy's girl. He took me to my first baseball game to see the Phillies. And so when my dad told me I could do that, I just knew I could do that. So that was 7. And so by the time I was 23, I was a member of the Florida Bar and practicing law.
At 23.
23.
All right. Let's rewind this. Talk to me. Okay, so where did you go to college, and how old were you when you started undergrad?
I was 17 going on 18. Was I 17? I graduated high school in 1976. So I was 17. And I started college in August at Stetson University.
Okay.
And I turned 18 while I was away from home. I hadn't been away from home ever before that time. And I remember telling my mom, I said, I don't like DeLand. I don't like it here. But I had a car. I was one of the few freshmen that had a car. I worked 3 jobs one summer. I worked for JCPenney Catalog on the weekends. I worked for Parks and Recreation from like 8 to 4. And then I went to JCPenney's. And then I worked in the dorm as a resident assistant. So I had to get that car, and I got it. It was an old car. I won't tell you what year it was, but it was old. And I drove up to Stetson, and I told my mom, I said, I don't like DeLand. I just it didn't gel with me, DeLand. So I found out that if I went on 1792, I could get to Bethune-Cookman. So I would hang out there. Fortunately, God was merciful to me. I was the only freshman on my floor not on academic probation, because Stetson was a powerhouse school for academics, and I was on full scholarship with them. So I didn't have to work. I had to work to get the car, but I really didn't have to work. And I even told them, I don't want work study. I don't want anything to take me away from my studies. So kept my grades up, and then I told my mother, I said, I'm coming home. So she says, okay, but we don't have any money. You got to do that scholarships. So I was able to pull together enough grants and scholarships. I did a semester. At that time, it was Broward Community College. And then I entered FAU, which was junior, senior, and graduate at that time. So I had enough credits amalgamated or combined to get into FAU. And that was in 1978. I graduated from FAU in 1979. I was always in a hurry to get. I'm going to let you in on a big secret. I hated school. I didn't see any practical application of what they were teaching me, okay? What do I need to know what X plus Y squared equals? You go to the grocery store, you need to know, do I have $1.17 for a loaf of bread? Really.
Right.
So I did school in a hurry, but I did well enough to get out. And I was on Dean's List when I left FAU, and I had never been to Texas, even though I had been accepted at the Suffolk Law School in Boston, Emory. I was on the wait list for FSU, but I really wanted to explore, so I started reading about this school in Texas Southern University in Houston, and I said, I've never been that far west. So I applied, and they even gave me a scholarship in law school.
Wow.
So I went west. The best experience of my life, because Texas Southern is a HBCU, a historically black college and university. And I think everybody, white or black, needs to be able to experience an HBCU school, because it prepared me for the bench. They will make you tough. And you can't say, well, they're just treating me bad because I'm black. Because if you look around, everybody else is black. So it's not that. So they prepared me. They helped me to, become more of who I am.
Wait, but rewind. So when did you graduate? You graduated from FAU then?
FAU in 79.
In 79. How many years did it take you to get your bachelor's degree?
3.
3.
And that's only because a class I needed to graduate, I had to wait a semester. So I just took a lot of courses. I'll tell you a funny story. The resident, I actually stayed in the dorm when I went to FAU, because I just said, I need to experience the college. I can't do it from my mama's house in Deerfield, which is 5 minutes away. So I went and I applied, and they gave me a room in dorm 21. I will never forget that. They were all numbered, dorm 21. And I heard that the resident assistant was looking for me. And I was hiding. I hid for almost 2 weeks. I said, she can't find me, because I thought she was going to put me out of the dorm, because I lived 5 minutes away in Deerfield. I could have walked, back to Deerfield. So I hid from her. And then one evening I slipped in and my roommate, her name was Linda Nobles. I'll never forget Linda Noble. She says, Linda's looking for you. I didn't know that Linda was standing behind me. So Linda and I became real good friends, and she was a criminal justice major. And she's going to kill me for telling this story, but her grades weren't good at all. She, if you've ever met somebody with a .44 grade point average, not 4.4, .44, that's less than 1. And she looked at me, she says, my people are coming from Ocala, Florida. I got to graduate. And I said, what are you telling me? So, we were friends. So I took a lot of classes in criminal justice, which, I credit her with opening my mind and heart to litigation. And I stayed in criminal law, but I graduated with a degree in political science. That was my major, but my minor was criminal justice. And I'll give a plug to one of our members of the Broward Bar, Norm Kent. Was the professor of many of the classes that I took. So, and he was a fun guy, tough but fun. And so I would go to class, I would give her my notes, and she got all B's, straight B's, just from reading my notes, because I don't know what she was doing during the day. And I got A's, and so she was upset. How you get A's and I got B's? I said, I went to class, So she graduated, and we've been friends ever since then. We may not be friends after this, but I think she's coming for me. But that inspired me. When I was in law school, I clerked for the Harris County District Attorney's Office. I saw a lot of black judges. And we're talking, the 80s, late 70s, early 80s. And I said to myself, one day I'm going to wear a robe. And so I came back to Broward right after graduating from law school in 1982.
So
yeah.
You did law school in 2 years?
Three. Again, I needed a class that was, sometimes I always say God has a way of slowing me down. Like I told you, I'm not really a patient person, but if you look and you look at it, I said, why I need this class to graduate. You had to wait. So I took other classes, but I was there and I was having a good time. Texas was different. That line that everything's bigger in Texas is true. Big cars, big restaurants. I enjoyed it, but I really wanted to get back. My mother was here in Deerfield, and I wanted to get back home and spend some time with her. Because after my dad died, I got really nervous and scared. I said, if God takes her next, I don't know what I'm going to do. My mother lived to be a ripe old age, and saw me make it as a county judge, as a circuit judge. She was at everything. Matter of fact, when I was a prosecutor, when Janet Reno hired me out of law school, I would run my closing arguments by her, and she would look at me. She says, "You're not going down there and telling them people that, are you?" I said, "What do you mean, Mama?" So, and this was a woman that went to trade school. She was a cosmetologist, a hairdresser back in the day. So, I'm talking law to her, and she had more common sense than I would ever amass in this life or the next one to come. And she helped me a great deal. I still miss her, but I've learned a lot from her.
Was that your first job as a lawyer?
Yeah, Janet Reno hired me right out of law school. So when I graduated, I had clerked, I was a certified legal intern. And back in those days, that was 91, she actually paid me for the summer. And then she called me to her office. I thought I was in trouble. And so I go in her office and I'm praying, God, please don't let her hurt me. Don't let her put me in jail. Because my mother says if I ever went to jail, she says, I'm not coming to get you. So I went to her office and she says, I'd like to offer you a position when you graduate. So my third year of law school, everybody getting dressed up, going to interviews. I never interviewed. I had a job. I knew where I was coming back to. And so when I got back, I went to work for her. And when I passed the bar, she elevated me. And back then, my starting salary was $17,000.
Wow.
I know people are falling out of their chairs now. And when I passed the bar, it went up to $20,000. I bought my mama a washing machine. I put the burglar bars all around her house so nobody would, bother her. So, I was doing well. But I knew that wasn't all there was for me. I did stop practicing for a little bit and went back to school to work on my doctorate. That's the one thing that I did not complete. I did the coursework, but I had to go back to work because, my mother was like, "Are you finished yet? What are you doing?" So I went back to work. Janet hired me back. I like to think that I was good because she wasn't all that happy when I stopped working. So she did take me back, and I worked there until 1991. I went back in '87, and because I went back to school in '84 and finished and went back early '87, and then in 1991 I get this call from Dexter Leighton saying I don't have your resume. I thought it was a prank call from my friends because they used to do that. And I said, well, I didn't send you one. So send it to this number. I wrote the number down. I'm saying, yeah, whose number is this? I was really, I said, whoever this is wasting my time. I'm going to get. But it was actually Dexter Leighton's office. And so I was hesitant. I didn't send it. And then his secretary called me and said, Mr. Leighton is waiting for your resume. I said, is this really Dexter Leighton's office? And I was real skeptical of that. And she says, yeah, it is. And I'm saying, well, how did he hear about me? And this is what I tell young lawyers all the time. You don't have to post stuff on Facebook or Twitter or Snapchat or whatever the young people are using these days. There's a Bible scripture that I quote all the time. Your gift will make room for you and bring you in the presence of great men and princes. There was a lawyer there named Leah Sims who told Dexter Leighton about me. And I didn't know Leah that well. But she had heard about me. And actually, I think her husband, Wendell Graham, saw me, in court. And I loved being a trial lawyer. I loved going to court. And he may have mentioned me to her. But for some reason, she stayed on Dexter, and Dexter hired me. So in 1991, I went to the U.S. Attorney's Office. I started in Miami. Then he calls me into his office. That's the worst thing that could happen to me. I get called to the boss's office. And most of the time, it's not for anything I did bad, but it's like going to the principal's office. It's like, why didn't want me? Who told on me or something like that. So I go in and I tell Janet I'm leaving. And matter of fact, my resignations professionally have been all to Janet Reno. God rest her soul. So
she was not happy this time again.
No, she wasn't. And you know what? You serve at the pleasure of the state attorney. In other words, they can fire you. And unless it's for something insidious like discrimination based upon race or gender or something like that, they have the right to call you in and say, I don't need you anymore. But Dexter called me in, and he says, I've got bad news for you. And I'm saying, oh, am I going to be laid off? So I said, so what is it? He says, I got to send you to Fort Lauderdale. And I'm saying, thank you, God. Because I had made that commute for close to 8 years from Deerfield to Miami every day. I knew all the potholes and the you name it, on 95, going back and forth every day. And people were saying, well, why don't you move? No, I got to help my mom, So he sent me to Fort Lauderdale, the best thing. So I was right across the bridge from the state courthouse, and a lot of state practitioners. I'll tell you two that really were instrumental. And because I didn't really know a lot about the federal system other than I spent 4 years. And so I really thought, I think I want to be a district court judge. I want to be a federal judge. And I looked at the magistrates. I said, I don't want to do magistrates. I want to be a district judge. So if I stay here long enough, my gift will make room for me. And Sam Fields and Jamie Benjamin, they practice very heavily in federal court. And, they would come to me after every hearing or trial, you need to apply for judgeship. I'm thinking they're talking about federal judgeship. So I'm looking into that. And then one day Sam Field says, I got somewhere you need to go with me. He took me to my first and only Jefferson Jackson dinner. That's the big Democratic dinner. And he's showing me around and telling me, you meet this person. But every table I went to, somebody said, oh, that seat's taken. So I sat near the door, and that's normally my primary seating habit now. I sat at a table in the back near the back door. A young white woman comes and asks, "Is anybody else at this table?" And I'm looking at her like, "You see anybody?" So I said, "No." She says, I said, "But you are." And she sat with me. Had no idea. That was Debbie Wasserman Schultz. We started talking, and we've been talking all over, since then. I found her to be a great person, and instrumental in getting me where I needed to go. Matter of fact, she appointed me to the federal JNC, and I ran for chair of the JNC, and that's what I'm doing even now, thanks to Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So you just never know who you'll meet. So you don't have to be in the front, near the dais where people are. You just sit, and somebody comes and sits next to you. You have no idea who that person is. But you know what? God has always, Braulio, sent people to me. I didn't know who they were at the time. I didn't know how they would fit into the plan of and my purpose. But and I don't like to drop big names, but I have met some people that have made my dreams come true. And so to the young people, don't be so apt to want to be out in the forefront. A lot of things happen behind the curtain. Okay? So I don't want to talk too much.
No, this is your story. That's why I've invited you to speak. So talk to me about your appointment, who appointed you, and how that went down. And
even though Jamie and Sam were pushing me, I started looking at the lay of the land, so to speak. I really looked at the salaries of the judges at that time, and I'm not a money grubber. I can make do, but I said, I'm making more money as a federal prosecutor than I would as a judge. So I'm going to have to really think this over. I'll stay here in the federal system now. If y'all can help me become a federal judge, thank you. But that's a pay.
Really?
I was making money.
Federal prosecutors make more than the federal judges, the local district?
No, the state judges.
Oh, the state judges.
Courts. Oh, yeah. Hands down. Okay.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Matter of fact, I think the magistrates are making $205,000. Federal magistrates.
Okay.
All right. So for the judges, y'all don't do the mass exodus because you can't do everything for money. But you really have to be committed to doing what you want, whatever your passions are and what you need to do. And so I started looking at the salaries. I said, my mother is relying upon me for certain bills to be paid. I can't take that kind of hit. So in 1994, kept getting prodding from my two cohorts over there, Sam and Jamie. And so I applied for a circuit position in 1994. And contrary to what everybody thinks, I didn't get the first time I applied. People think, whatever she wants, no. I had to wait for it. And I saw, after I didn't get it in 94, the circuit position, because that was a little closer to what I was making. It wasn't going to be a big dip, but it was going to be a dip in the salary. And I didn't get it, so I just said, I'll wait for a federal, I'm happy. I'm over here trying cases. The federal government was sending me to different jurisdictions to try cases and do things. I was happy, okay, making money, and just glad to go to work every day. And then that's the seat that Judge Carol Taylor, got that seat. But a few people called me and said, you need to apply for the Oakland County position. And my first thing was, I'm not going to do that. No disrespect. My happiest days really were as a county court judge. I had a ball. I was trying everything, county and circuit. Okay, it's just, that's the people's court, and I love people. I love talking to people, and some of the craziest things happen. I got some. Maybe I'll write a book one day about it. But
why'd you do it though? Because you took a pay cut.
I took. I really wanted to be a judge, and I felt because I had gotten involved with T.J. Reddick Bar at that time. And I started, looking around and saying, I can do that. I can do this position, okay? And so I applied for the county position. There were 54 people that applied for that position, and that was in 1995. And so people were calling me, well, next time you'll get it. And I'm fasting and praying. I firmly believe that. And I'm telling God, okay, God, if I don't get this, I'm going to stay federal, stay in my lane over here. But I just felt that, if I talked to God long enough, I was going to get it. I didn't really talk to God that much about the circuit position because of the pay cut. And, I talked to my mother, and she says, you don't have to worry about me. She says, do what you need to do. And so I applied for the county, and I started calling people and, trying to set up lunches and everything. At that time, Lawton Childs was the governor. And so I think my application was submitted April 9th. April 17th, I was a judge in Broward County. Okay. Prayer works. I'm not trying to turn this into a revival service, but if I have to, I will. But prayer does work. I've always believed in the power of prayer. So on the 17th, I was a judge. I started on May 1st because I wanted to give the U.S. attorney, at that time it was Kendall Coffey, I wanted to give him 2 weeks' notice. And he says, what? Go over there. I said, you never know if I have to come back here. So I'm going to do the right thing. So what happened was I go take care of things in the morning at the U.S. Attorney's office, and then I come and shadow Dale Ross. He was the chief judge at the time. And people were scared, talking, she's going to be like Dale. So I said, I got my own style. And I think that's kind of unsettled a lot of people, that I have my own style. I'm not a cookie cutter person, and when people would say, well, the other judges don't do that, I would say, I don't look like the other judges. So I bought a different style. I've always had my own, and I follow the rules. I know the canons. I teach ethics. I know them, but I just wasn't going to be, cookie cutter. I came here to make a difference, to show people that black women can do some things, okay? And I handled 90 days on the bench. I had my first high-profile case, Pauline Zile. That's the woman that was at the flea market. She and her husband, John, and John actually killed their child, and she filed a false police report. So I got cameras in my face 90 days on the bench. So, it's like I'm used to it. So in 1998, a circuit position came open. Again, that was Carol Taylor, who went to the 4th DCA. So people were saying, apply. Well, I think there may have been like 60 people to apply for that seat. And I told God, I said, look, I'm tired of all this mass applications. I said, but I really want that position. Because I'm trying circuit cases. I would finish up my county docket and I would just call around. Anybody need help, And I never got the differential. It used to be you get an increase in your pay. I did it just for the love of it. I've always loved trials. I think when I was a trial lawyer, I was pretty good, getting my convictions, and I was a prosecutor. So I really loved the trial work, but I wanted to do it on the circuit level. I applied, and this time God made me wait a little longer. It wasn't that 9-day turnaround, 8-day, 9-day turnaround. I think it was like a month. And Lawton Childs appointed me in June of 1998. And that was just before he passed away.
Wow.
Yeah. So he was there for such a time. But I got to meet him when I went to Tallahassee I think I was teaching at New Judges College. And we had a dinner. And I was sitting at the table with Justice Wells and his wife, Linda. And Lawton Childs came by to, greet the new judges. And I walked up to him and I said, Mr. Governor, this she-coon would love to thank that he-coon for appointing me. That was a joke that I'm a he-coon. All right, so I'm a she-coon today. So thank you for appointing me. And he shook my hand, and I told him. He says, "Oh yeah, I know who you are." So, but the governors have changed over time. We haven't had a Democratic governor since then. But I don't think the governors should rely on the party affiliation of anybody that's a judge. Braulio, in almost 24 years that I sentenced people, I presided over cases, I never asked anybody, are you Republican or Democrat? All right? That doesn't matter when it comes to the law and how you adjudicate it in the courtroom. And I wish we would get out of that mode and just appoint qualified folks. Not party line, we're going to follow this, we're going to do this. Judges are independent thinkers, okay? Or they should be. And they should be able to look at the law and say, this is what the law says, okay? Now, if the law doesn't make sense, we call it void for vagueness. You can't define what the terms are. If a normal average person can't determine what does this law mean, then the judge should step in and say, no, this is not constitutional. Because if you're going to charge somebody with something, at least let them know what they've been charged with. So if ignorance is no defense for not knowing the law, then having a law that makes no sense should be as equally, indefensible. So I had a good time. Yes, I have declared certain statutes unconstitutional, but they got fixed. I've been reversed, not a whole lot, and so it's but it's not a game. You're not counting if I get 5 reversals. No. Sometimes where there is no law, there's no transgression. And I have been known to be, I'll do something. It doesn't hurt anybody, but you got to call the attention to the lawmakers that this doesn't make any sense. Like we had a switchblade law that I declared unconstitutional. I mean, the fourth reversed me, but I had a legislator to call me and ask for a copy of my order, and they fixed the statute. So sometimes these things happen. I tell judges, don't be afraid of the reversal. Now, if you've done something stupid, and you can't just say, I don't like the law, I don't like the law, I don't like the law. Then why are you a judge? Okay, we live by the law. But there's some laws that don't make any sense. And so you got to bring that to the attention of the people who promulgated that law and sent it to you. So I had a good run. I had a good time. I'm hoping I made Lawton Childs proud. I believe I was the last black woman appointed by him in Broward County. And I'm a double Lawton Childs appointment.
How many years did you serve as a judge then?
I took the bench. I was appointed. Your appointment actually starts your judgeship. And I got my I was afraid to mail my paperwork in because I was going to give Kendall Coffey his 2 weeks. But my actual appointment was April 17th, 1995. I left the bench December 31st, 2018. So I was around here a long time, and
Wow.
and I was never opposed in an election.
I'm doing the math. 30 plus years?
No, it's 20,
95.
23 years, 8 months.
2 minutes, 5 seconds.
Yeah, because my commission expired
Okay, so 2020.
January the 7th of 2019. So I just didn't come. I mean, I could have come in
Right.
if necessary. And that's why Judge Moon, who ran for and won my open seat, she had to wait until January 8th to take the bench because I was still active. But I enjoyed it. But you know what, Braulio? Sitting on the bench and being out in the community, I saw a lot of things, and I said, I need to be a part of this. I need to be there to sort of help make things right. And a lot of things I could not do from the bench because of the canons and the ethics that apply to judges. So I made up my mind. And people knew. I gave ample notice. I told people 5 years before I retired that I was leaving the bench. I told the lawyers, count up your coins, get your money ready, because it's going to be a run seat. but I need to be out in the community. The only thing that has slowed me down is this pandemic. But I'm still out and about. I've been fortunate and blessed to work with the NAACP for a lot of things. I mean, I worked with them when I was on the bench. I took a program to them, and I said, could you all, run this? I gave them the blueprint and everything. And that was an evening with Broward's black judges. And I'm not a discriminating person, but I firmly believe that there's a scripture. I'm also a licensed minister, so I'll try to work in the scriptures, but I'm not trying to get anybody saved right now. But I hope they will just listen. 1 Thessalonians 5:12 says, know them that labor among you. And the unfortunate thing about judges is people really don't know who the judges are. Yeah, they'll know, okay, I went before this judge, and if they had a bad experience, then that's what they tell everybody in the community.
That's the whole of that judge, when
Absolutely.
it isn't.
Absolutely. And so I wanted people to know, especially black people in Broward County, because there are people who ask me still, are there any other black judges in Broward County? Some people have grown up, and the only judge that they've known is Judge Ilona Holmes. Okay, because I made a point of getting around, being in the churches, being in the community, trying to just, let people know there is justice at that courthouse. And it doesn't matter what color you are. Okay, so if I heard about a colleague that was, kind of giving a bad time to people, I just go speak to them. I'm not trying to change the ruling or anything like that, but just let them know. And the lawyers knew they had an advocate in me. But that's white and black. They just came to me, judge, this judge is, and I go speak to my colleagues. And I'm very fortunate that I was respected enough that I could go and chat with them and say, look, is this what you're doing? You said this, and that can be interpreted this way. So that was my aim and my desire, to be respected and to show them that I could do the work. My last 8 years on the bench, all I did was try capital cases, the lion's share of what I did. Most people would say, no, I've tried more capital cases than most judges in their entire lifetime on the bench. And I didn't start off in circuit. I was a county judge for 3 years. So I loved it, but I'm loving what I'm able to accomplish in the community. The NAACP, we assisted in getting the first person, the returning citizen, their restoration so they could go and vote. We're heavily engaged in juvenile issues. And I told the president, I said, I didn't do juvenile maybe I should have. But my reasoning is there's too many hands in the pot. You got to deal with too many agencies and things to do what's right for the child. So I said, no, all I have to deal with, the prosecutor tells me their side, the defense tells me their side. I'll hear from whoever wants to be heard, but the ultimate decision and sentencing is mine. And I'm only limited by the law, if there's a minimum mandatory or something like that. But I'm seeing things about our children being Baker acted at an inordinate number, and they're black and brown children, Braulio. So, there's a lot on the books. Matter of fact, we just seen one of the laws, the NAACP, we were supporting the legislation, but it got changed in the process. But there's a statute that came out as a part of Senate Bill 590 about the arrest of a child under the age of 6. You've seen that statute now in action, where a 5-year-old, and unfortunately caused a lot of damage to a teacher, but that child's not going to be arrested and put through the system. But I'm still hoping that child can get some services. Because according to the news, we're not involved with that, but I listen to the news, and that's something I didn't do when I was on the bench. I look at the news. I'm looking at it now,
Right.
Maybe that child can get some services, because they said it's not the first time the child attacked that one teacher. So I'm praying for the teacher, okay, I'm praying for the child. But I think we're on the right track, not incarcerating children. Handcuffing children, I've been following a leading psychologist, that PTSD that flows from handcuffing a child. The children can't articulate it and tell you that, but it has an impact on them down the road. So I'm involved. President Ellison has made sure I'm on a lot of boards and committees, in addition to teaching at the National Judicial College. I just finished up my 1-year term as the chair of the faculty council, so I'm now the immediate past chair. And we're having something on Friday where we're doing a faculty orientation. So I'm glad to be a part of that. I've been able to, by Zoom during the pandemic, I've taught judges in South Korea. I've taught judges in the Ukraine. And I was telling you, my heart is broken for the judges in the Ukraine, because I worked at the time with the chief judge. They call him something else, but people over here understand that's the chief judge, who's a woman, and their director of judicial education. And I worked with them in preparing the materials, because they had to translate my written materials, and it looks like a bunch of hieroglyphics, but working with them and then getting an update as to what's going on with them just broke my heart. The chief judge, they're trying to get her out of the country because she's on Putin's hit list. And I will remind you, that's how Nazi Germany got started. Get rid of the judges that are going to stand up for the law. Let's put some spineless people on the bench, and they'll just go along to get along. And that's not what judges do. That's not what judges should be doing, just going along to get along. They're co-equal branch of government, and they should act like the independent judiciary that they were meant to be. But that's a different program, and I'll come back for that later on.
Okay. So, Judge, what is your advice, your counsel to young women, whether they're in high school or something now, or law school, or even young lawyers that aspire to be like Judge Ilona Holmes, get on the bench and make her mark on this society?
Well, first things first. You don't want to be Ilona Holmes. As I tell people, you see my glory, but you don't know my story. Some of the things I went through, some of the things that were said to me, anybody that didn't grow up in Philly and don't have a backbone would have just crawled in a corner. But my philosophy is, don't let them see you sweat. And if you're sweating, it's because you're working hard. To anybody that wants to be a judge, just keep working at it. No one person can put you on the bench. It takes more than one person to help you and assist you. Don't be afraid to ask for help. It's not because you hang out and socialize with folks. That should never be the litmus test for getting a judge on the bench. This person should be competent. They should know the law. Now, people may not have liked me a lot, Braulio, and that didn't matter, because I didn't come to the courthouse to be liked or loved. I came to the courthouse to be respected and to be efficient. I got my love and affection from my family and my friends away from the courthouse. So if you're thinking that, okay, it's going to be a love fest, it's not like Facebook. The courthouse is not Facebook. Just because they say they like you doesn't translate into they're going to keep you, okay? So be competent, okay? Know the law. Show up at things where people can get to know you, because folks need to know those that labor among them. When I knew I wanted to be a judge, I started floating around in certain circles. There are people that would take you around. Sam Fields took me to the Jefferson Jackson dinner. And so get around folks that can help you. Not, if you're in a sinking ship, you don't want to be asking somebody that's in the boat with you for help and assistance. Unless they can swim or they got a life raft and they can help blow it up and get you don't want to do that. So be competent. Get a mentor. Get somebody that it's in your field that will help you. Let the judges know who you are. Show up on time. Be prepared. I can't tell you how many cases that I've presided over. I knew the case better than the lawyer arguing the case, and that was bad because I read the files. So be that way. And people may talk about you. They talked about, here she is quoting the law. Yeah, well, that's what judges should be doing, citing their authority for making the ruling. So know the law, and show up, and then be persistent. Okay, people will tell you no, people will tell you untruths, but be persistent. Know what you want. Go after what you want. All right, you gotta. I saw a Christmas movie. I get something from everything. I think it was Merry Little Christmas with Kelly Rowland on Lifetime.
You got that plug, Lifetime.
And her sister at the end says, look, you got to know what you want, go after it, and make it happen. So to the young lawyers, the young women, you don't have to be like Ilona. I'm flattered because they said imitation is the best form of flattery, but just be you. Be authentic. Because I'm so tired of folks trying to look like Kim Kardashian when they're beautiful in their own right. You can't keep up with the Joneses because the Joneses card got declined at Walmart the other day. So, yeah. So I saw that on Facebook. But, be yourself. Be authentic. Be around. Be competent. And, and this worked for me, but you don't have to subscribe to it. Pray. It got me through. It got me through that courthouse. Almost 24 years. Sometimes a lot of contention in that courthouse. I can remember being asked by certain judges, do you belong here? I was asked one time by an older judge to get him a cup of coffee. But I let them know I didn't come to be the help. I am the help to help you get a better reputation in the community. So I'm excited about the future of Broward. Everywhere I travel, I don't let anybody talk bad about Broward County because I'm Broward and proud.
Judge Ilona Holmes, thank you for spending time with me. Thank you for your long service to our community. Thank you for your friendship.
Thank you. Love you, Braulio.
Love you too.